This is aisle 42. Holistic nutrition, delicious meal replacements, plant-based innovation, and the healing power of love, science, and determination. That's what's in store for you in this episode of aisle 42, where I talk with Paul from Heal. If you've ever blended up some smoothie or vitamin powder and felt like your taste buds, body, or bowels deserve better, then you're going to love this conversation. And for those of you interested in this kind of stuff, yes, Heal is a part of our ethical food group family. Okay, let's get into it. Here's Paul from Heal. Paul, I am so excited that we're talking, and it's probably because I've been enjoying your product now for a few months. It's become a real part of my daily routine, and I enjoy it so much. So I'm really looking forward to getting into all the details. But before we do that, I have to ask the big question, and that is, if you were to imagine the perfect grocery store of the future, what would that look like?
Oh, wow. Well, I think it would be one filled with whole foods. At the same time, I think a grocery store where sustainability was built in and there was a deeper understanding of quality over quantity, particularly when it comes to our nutritional needs. So, kind of a balance between almost the idea of your pharmacy as your grocery store, like you can get your health from your grocery store in the form of products like Heal, but at the same time you can get your fun and your creative, the creative pieces that just make food enjoyable. Just kind of knowing that collectively all of those things together are moving you in a direction of vitality and longevity and illness prevention and just the opportunity to be educated. I think grocery stores have a huge opportunity if they really chose to help people become more aware around how food is medicine and how it has a massive impact on their health and their life. I don't know if that's a good answer.
Yeah, you get bonus points. That's well said. And it actually segues really well into just a little bit of a story. I don't have a question for you just yet, but I just want to say that I've been a consumer of your category for many, many years. And, based on our shared work together, Rick Williams said to me, like, it's like the new formulation, it's ready. You got to try it. And I'm like, okay, I'm game. And it came to my home, and I've got tubs of powders. I've got green stuff, with scoops, and I've been putting it in blenders and shakers for a long time. And when I tried yours, there are two things that happened. The first thing was within 2 hours, I felt energized, and it was notable. And I'm like, maybe it was some other, maybe I had an extra espresso. I don't know what it was. But every time I used it since then, I have always felt a very slow, careful, beautiful release of what feels like natural energy. It's no spike. I just feel like a boost, kind of like a vitamin B12 shot kind of a thing. Just felt really, energized. The second thing was that there's probably no real good way to say this, but down there, I felt a lot more comfortable later in the day. How's that for some colorful language? But I really enjoyed your product. So first off, I want to say thank you. But my first question about your product is, and this is, very as a founder, founders have stories. Some founders have more elaborate stories than others. Your story is very personal. You got into this for a very personal reason. So, and I think listeners will be curious to learn more about why in the world you would get into a very crowded category, a difficult product to make, but one that you feel is important for you and the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, we were legally separated at the time, so I'm challenged sometimes putting her into a category. But the mother of my children and somebody that I loved very much ended up with a really horrible disease called ALS. And inside of that diagnosis, even though we were apart, I made the decision to take care of her full time. We have two adult children together. And inside of that disease being a neurological disease, essentially what ends up happening is your neurology slowly starts to turn off. You lose the ability to speak, move, eat, and eventually breathe, which in most cases leads to death. It is a palliative disease. But along the way, with that journey of caring for Linda and just wanting to give her the best, we bumped into feeding tubes because when you can't swallow, the only way that you can get nutrient is through a feeding tube. It's a mechanical implementation of a tube literally goes through your abdominal wall into your stomach, and you're pressing liquid through that tube into that person's stomach so that they don't die. I was introduced to products by Nestle and Abbott. The product that was recommended to me through the medical system was a product called Complete, which is essentially the same thing as like Boost and Ensure, and certainly not something that I would want to drink 10 of a day for the rest of my life. And so, just out of a want for better and the fact that Linda couldn't really speak and express herself, I made most of her decisions based on what I would want for me. And I think that that's where it really took a turn. You know, what's going on in this space? Why are we giving people who are sick a subsistence? Why aren't we recognizing that our sickest people deserve our best food and our best alternatives, not our worst? And so I started blending and formulating at home. And yeah, there was no reason for me before that to even look at the category or consider entrepreneurship or even the idea of creating this kind of a product. But when it came to loving somebody the way I would want to love myself and having a sports and nutrition background, just by virtue of the things that I do, I've been a career firefighter for 25 years. I own a CrossFit gym. I've been competing in sports for a long time. I just knew that nutrition was a huge component inside of performance. And in Linda's case, the performance that we were looking for was one of healing, which obviously you can see segued into the name. So really just out of a desire to want to give people like Linda an alternative, what I was doing for her at home quickly became something we realized could be a legacy for her story and the loss that our family went through when she passed, and could help a whole lot of people, not just sick, but healthy, because ultimately the biology of this is no different when we're sick or healthy. It's just the goals of what is it that we're attempting to do. So that's kind of the background and why I got going on this thing. So bit of a mouthful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the share. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that, the story of how a brand comes together and how products end up on shelves when we go a few layers deeper and we hear, stories like this of real people and real impact on someone's well-being. And then how, as you call it, food is medicine, can be a really powerful thing. We can all benefit from it. And to that point, when I first started exploring your product and more importantly started consuming your product and putting 2 scoops of green powder in a shaker or in a blender, and I started to look at the ingredients and I realized, oh my gosh, I understand all of these ingredients. These words, these names, these descriptions are all, I can easily pronounce them. They're familiar to me, and the combination of them is actually very enjoyable to drink. And of course the category is full of a lot of chalky, a lot of really aftertastes and after effects. Some are great and some are not. And when I started to enjoy your product, it really stood out to me that obviously it is not as easy as someone like you might make it seem, that it is hard to pick really great ingredients and have great suppliers to pull it all off. So talk to us a little bit about the product once you started realizing that this is something you wanted to put on shelves for other people. How easy was it? How hard was it? Or how hard is it?
Well, I mean, looking back, the claim of what you're going to do versus the journey of how you end up doing it. We started out with the idea of, oh, we're going to take what I'm making in a blender and put it into bags and make it accessible to people. You know what I mean? Just because Linda was having so much success with a 100% food based formula. But when you start getting into the shelf life, when you want to start focusing on stabilizing the phytonutrient in the plant, not having the oxidative properties of water impact those nutritional elements, not wanting to have to keep pasteurized, like you start learning more about how food is made. That's where we landed on a powder. Then when you start getting into, well, what is something that people can trust? So the other part of our category, not only is it flooded, but it's flooded with a lot of products that are making claims and oftentimes aren't making those products with the best of intentions. Their goal is profitability. Our goal has always been to produce the best possible product with whatever ingredients we could find and get that developed and designed under a guideline that not just the consumer could trust, but also the practitioner. So we meet Health Canada's guideline for meal replacement with our product. obviously the word meal replacement, or that statement, sometimes gives people a, well, what am I replacing a meal? It's just the category. It's the thing that gives us the guidance so that we can actually have something that we can formulate towards. And yeah, just the idea that there's like over 37 ingredients. We've got stuff coming from Switzerland. You know what I mean? Like the list of raw materials required to make this product, and then really the ability to take those ingredients, get what they call the certificate of analysis, understand what the food values are, the expressions of micronutrient and macronutrient, and then blending them all together in a combination that expresses and meets the upper and lower limits that are accepted by Health Canada. It took a year and a half to formulate, because we really have done something very, very special and very unique. We're literally the only company to ever meet that guideline without using synthetic isolate additives for the micronutrient requirements of the formula. So it just turns into something that people can trust. The blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting it done were really just rooted in the same values that we applied to Linda's care. People just deserve the best. She deserved the best. And so I can't attach her name to something that I wouldn't want everybody to know was good for them, and creates a lot of those outcomes that you described that you're having for yourself, right? So whether it's your sick loved one, whether it's yourself, whether it's, a family member, whether it's just wanting to make sure that you're getting enough vitamins and minerals that are coming from fruits and vegetables that aren't wilting on a shelf. It ticks a lot of boxes. But yeah, it was a tremendous amount of work. And if it wasn't for Linda and that inspiration, I can tell you I probably would have.
That I understand.
Yeah.
I walked into our local, I don't know, like supplement store. It recently opened. It's sort of strategically placed between two very large corporate gymnasiums, Club 16, Trevor Linden Gym, and then Fitness World, Steve Nashy type thing. Anyway, there's a bunch of really, really big gyms around just up the hill from where I live. And so the supplement store opened up. And after a few weeks, I kind of walk by it often. I don't normally go into stores like that, but I thought I'll go check it out. So I walked in there, and there's a lot of stuff to look at. The shelves were packed right to the ceiling. And I said, where are your plant-based options? And they're like, oh yeah, over here. And so I'm like, okay, great. And I follow the salesperson to the far wall in the back corner on the ground, the bottom on the ground, next
Yeah.
to, like, I don't know, foam blocks and, kettlebells. There was one little area for plant-based. And like I said, I shop the category. I buy plant-based, proteins and meal replacements and supplements. And I didn't recognize the brand. I'd never seen it before, which I thought was a little surprising. And then I, of course, picked it up and turned it over and looked at the ingredients and the nutritional facts. And it was so unappealing just to read alone. But when I think, and you highlighted, like the fitness and performance, people who are really looking to optimize their performance, what kind of feedback are you getting from consumers they're already doing this type of thing, and then they start using your product, and how is it impacting their ability to do the hard work and to exercise, or in their jobs perform at a really high level?
Yeah. I think it's important to define to me, what are the three different categories of why a person works out first, though. It really showcases why that store has a market. Because truthfully, that people work out for three different reasons. They work out for appearance, they work out for performance, or they work out for health. The interesting thing is that a healthy person will perform well and look good, but a healthy person won't take steroids. A healthy person won't take, all sorts of performance enhancing drugs. But a person who wants to just perform and isn't worried about health will. And the person who just wants to look a particular way might actually do a whole lot of things that aren't really healthy for them in the long run, but it gives them the outcome expression, or that physical look that they're looking for, right? So for me, focusing on those people who just desire health, then recognize that health comes from exercise and activity that gives them performance, and then also turns into a body that expresses in a beautiful way. Those types of people love Heal, but they're not oftentimes the ones that go and shop at some of these stores that you're describing, right? We're probably more of a direct to consumer product. because it does take a little bit of education, and it does take a little bit of conscious awareness around what am I doing to my body and why. Once a person gets started on heal, unlike yourself, the adoption rate is really high, and the continued use is very high because they literally feel it. There's a tangible aspect of like, my body's been starving for a lot of the things that are in heal. And I think that that's where people, whether they understand it or not, we're all suffering from varying degrees of malnutrition. We're literally missing the micronutrient necessary for our body to make its own medicine and heal. So when you actually get the expression of all of these different micronutrients, the magnesium, the zinc, the iron, it's all coming from a plant-based source, the bioavailability of it is just much higher than a synthetic. You just absorb it properly. It's paired with the right sugars, proteins, fats, fiber. You know what I mean? Like, we're taking a leaf of spinach and we're buying it froze. It's been frozen, and the oxidative quality of water has been taken out, but we haven't removed any of the pieces of the leaf, right? You're getting the whole plant just without the water in it, and you're just rehydrating it when you drink it. So, I mean, to answer your question is I don't know anybody who uses heal that doesn't feel a benefit, but it requires them to understand what is it that they're actually getting from it to maybe really see how it impacts performance. I think the other thing is that, like, when it comes to the world of performance, any really high level athlete now has a dietitian. They're getting their food highly monitored. They're not just using products that you buy at like a supplement store. In a lot of cases, they're not even oftentimes taking supplements. And that's another distinguishing factor between our product and something that you might find in one of those stores. Heal is not actually a supplement. It's a food, because we literally put nothing in it other than food-based ingredients. There's no tax on it in Canada because it's a food. What we've done is we've just been able to take all of these amazing ingredients, working with an amazing food scientist, powder them or have them powdered, compound them literally by weight and by measure to meet a guideline that supplies you with all of the vitamins, minerals, and trace elements your body needs for performance. So you literally just can't help but perform better when you take something like Heal.
I had a conversation with Miyoko Shinner a few months ago, and she commented that she feels like there's a protein crisis, and that a lot of people are obsessed with protein, or always looking for protein, when in fact, and her words were, when is the last time a doctor said to you, you have a protein deficiency, like that it isn't part of, that there isn't a protein problem. We just think that there is in our diets. What's your take on protein consumption, volume of protein for someone that wants to be healthy?
Well, I think the thing that people forget is protein serves a lot of different purposes, no different than fats and carbohydrates. They're building blocks, but they're also just fuel. So protein is used by your body to build a lot of the essential amino acids that it needs, just for cellular health and to develop and build muscle. But when you have too much of it, your body just uses it for fuel. It literally just burns it for calories, right? So I guess what ends up happening is, you're right, this desire to go, I need X amount of volume of protein to achieve a particular goal. I think that's spun out of the bodybuilding industry. I don't think that's particularly relevant to the average person who just wants to be healthy and perform well. I know that people who really get into the counting of their macros, so this is the balance of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, so they get, again, a particular type of physique, are very protein driven. But I mean, there's all sorts of different science on it. And then at the same time, it's like, how many grams of protein am I getting versus the amount that I'm actually absorbing and my body is utilizing to build muscle, comes down to protein quality and type. So it is a science unto itself. I think that what's happened is people have been drawn in the direction of it because it's something to buy. Like, protein powders are extremely cheap to make and very profitable. So kind of spinning back into the industry of protein, you walked into a store, you saw all these supplements. Categorically, it's going to be something that's a pre or performance based product, right? Then it's going to be the building blocks, which is your proteins, your BCAAs, all of these types of things. And then at the last, you see the tiny little shelf of plant based stuff. The reason those companies don't carry a lot of plant based stuff is because it's expensive to make. The bottom line is that protein like whey protein is an extremely cheap byproduct of milk.
And it's in everything.
It's in everything. So if they can convince you that you need 250 grams of protein and each scoop is 30, and they can make it each scoop for, 25 cents, but they can sell it to you for $2, that's a great margin for them. And then if they can literally tell you need to consume 250, there's literally math per person on how much money they're going to make just by convincing you to eat all of this or this animal-based protein. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of just focusing in on macros. I think that where people really would just see a biological improvement in the way they perform. Even creating muscle is a biological action. Like your body has to be functioning in a healthy way just to even make muscle, right? So that synthesis of protein into muscle also requires all of these micronutrients. That's where people are losing out. That's what people are missing. Nobody in North America is starving for calories. Let's just look around. But what they're missing is all of the micronutrients necessary for their body to perform optimally and actually burn a lot of those fuels and make the things that they want to make. And protein is one of those things that we've just been convinced is something we should buy lots of. Just like I would say the same thing of sugars and carbohydrates. It's just a different customer. So in the health space, let's sell people protein, and everywhere else, let's sell them junk food. And in the middle, we'll just remove all of the nutrition because we really just want to have a bunch of sick people walking around eating the things that we tell them to, that are going to make us the most money. So that's my snapshot of a conspiracy theory inside of my
Sounds awkwardly accurate for sure.
Oh yeah, it's come from somewhere, that's for sure.
I put your product right behind me. I wanted to. It didn't fit on my shelf. My shelf was too short. Your it's a gigantic. What is this? It's almost 1,000 grams. Let's talk about sort of the vegan, dairy free sort of play. I feel like certainly in our home, that's a showstopper. We have to make sure that there's no dairy in the products that we're consuming. So in the plant-based world, and we all know in the food business, we all know that plant-based is important. It's growing. It's sort of a very broad brush, broad stroke. When it comes, it's not like there's a plant-based aisle. It's sort of spread throughout, but it's an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to being responsible with food making and food growing, and the fact that the animal welfare and animal production is just very it's taking its toll on the planet and on our communities in which they are raised. What's it been like to be firmly in the plant-based world with your product, and what's been some of the feedback you've heard on that side of the equation?
Well, I mean, I think that interestingly enough, I probably made it plant based for a different reason than you have shaped your household and your home. Like my motivations in the beginning were to meet a need for the vegan community. It was a byproduct of just wanting to make the best product. So what it challenged me to do is ask a lot of really tough questions. Why are these other companies using, dairy? Why are these other companies filling their products full of oil and sugars? Like what's the advantage to doing it that way? It's just cheap. It's just cheap. And when you actually design something to give you what it is that your body needs, you just slide in the direction of plant based. Like it just didn't make sense to put milk or to put meat proteins or anything else into that product. And so once I got into that space and I started to understand like more about some of the science and the research that's been done about inflammation and how inflammation impacts your body and is a breeding ground for lots of different systemic diseases that we face in our society, diabetes, cancers, heart disease, hypertension. So many of these spin out of inflammation, and meat is just a huge contributor to inflammation. So that's kind of where I've come from with it, is like I want to make a product that just gives people what they're missing, gives them a better chance at vitality, because vitality is ultimately the key to longevity. If the kind of the B Corp wins or the planetary wins inside of that, or that we just need less animals and we have less greenhouse gases and we're not transporting water all over the planet, because we're freeze drying at source. There's a real ethical piece to the company that spun out of just wanting to do the right thing for a human being. It just challenged us as a company to go, well, if this has got to be good for people, it's got to be good for people, place, and planet. It's got to be good for community. It's got to, right? So I guess it hasn't just kind of stayed inside of the vegan space. It's been more of that B Corp conversation or that ethical brand type of conversation of how can we steward this product in the direction of the consumer, knowing that we're not doing anything and to harm the planet or hurt anyone in the process. So it's become very holistic for us in the way we view business and the development of any product we're making now, we will make in the future.
I love it. That does answer my question. I want to just say that when it comes to flavor, texture, mouthfeel. Let's just be honest. In this category, mouthfeel, aka that chalkiness, that pastiness that's often there, your product doesn't have those attributes, if they're called that. It's very easy to drink. It's enjoyable. I feel like it's got this way, like I don't have to blend the crap out of it. I don't have to add a bunch of stuff to make it palpable. I really, it's that texture that goes a long way to making it enjoyable to consume, to the point where, like I said, because it's in my daily habit, I'm excited about enjoying it. I literally, I look forward to it. It's not like, oh, I gotta do my nutrients.
Got to take
Yeah,
my
I got to do my
greens.
greens, and I got to, yeah, plug your nose.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Like you got to choke it down. And of course, anytime you have those unpleasant experiences, I can't help remember way back. Do you remember when power bars first showed up? Remember how we were choking those things down
Oh
because we
yeah.
thought that they were helping us, but my gosh, they were so unpleasant. But there's been so many
So
products
bad.
along the way that that are supposed to be helpful, but they're not. But in your case, just how great it is to drink it. And I have found just some customer feedback for you. I've been kind of decreasing the amount of liquid that I add, so it's even a little bit thicker, and I don't have to consume quite as much volume, of my beverage. I've done, whether it's blending or shaking, or the other day I even just stirred it with a spoon and it worked. I wasn't expecting it to actually to work.
You don't even need to. You don't need a shaker cup
Right,
to make
exactly.
it
And that
nice.
that really, you shakers with little things inside to agitate them. And we're doing all these things. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I really appreciate it. And the only mistake I've made with your product is this: when I first started ordering it, I got so excited. I did a subscription off your website, which is perfect, and I'm still a subscriber, but I maybe overdid it a little bit. I had to call after about a month. I had to call your customer support and say, you know what, we need to dial it back just a little bit. I can't get through it all, but what a wonderful problem to have, and I've really enjoyed it. So I just wanted, for listeners, where can people find a Heal, and where can people get what they need?
Yeah, we're mostly direct to consumer, so web based. The website is drinkheal.ca. So again, that's drinkheal.ca, all one word. And yeah, we have shifted in the direction of the subscription. The beautiful thing about the way we built the subscription now, though, is that you can actually you will get like an email in advance letting you know that your product is getting ready to ship, and you can pause your order. You don't have to get it. So if you do get a bit of a buildup, you don't have to actually turn it off. You can just kind of pause for a period of time, and that's what we really want, right? We want people to be consuming it one a day as a baseline, but we all know that life happens and that's not always the case. The other nice thing about our website is that it will educate you a little bit more about some of the things that we're doing and why we did it. Learn a little bit more even about the different ingredients that are in the product. If that's a question, and you can do a bit of more of a deep dive. And what you'll see from us as a company moving forward is we're very focused on education, which is why I'm even on this podcast. Like I want people to learn and understand the beautiful complexity that nature created when it made food. Like we've evolved with the biology of the planet. Like this is what's so crazy for me about all of this, right? Is that we think we're smarter than the innate intelligence of the planet, but we've come from it. Like we were designed to live harmoniously with the things that are in nature and what nature has provided for us. So to isolate things out and to move in the direction of making things that we feel like we can control we've caused a lot of our own problems in the food space. And, if this has done anything to me, it's really challenged me to learn and open my eyes up to why the industry is what it is. And some of the things that you commented, even about the feel and the texture and the flavor and all that kind of stuff of the product, that's because I didn't change nature. I just took the water out. Right? We literally we've just measured things. We've appreciated how it expresses. And then we've put them into, measured by weight and blended them in the proper ratios so that you get this expression of nutrition. But the other things that we haven't done is we haven't put binding agents in it to make it so that it just stays consistent once it's mixed. That's what you're getting sometimes inside of that palatability. We haven't tried to make fruits and vegetables taste like vanilla and chocolate. Like, where in nature do strawberries and blueberries and raspberries and kale, like in combination, they just, you know what I mean? It just isn't going to taste like chocolate. So that's where we went the direction of just building on the natural notes that's coming from the fruits and vegetables that make up Heal. So it's a really cool thing and I appreciate your feedback, to see how when you work with nature, you don't work against it, and you learn about it and you refine it in a way that it can be more functionally appealing to people. That's what's so cool, right? Like, I'm helping people eat 4 servings of fruits and vegetables every time they drink Heal. How many people sit down and actually eat 4 servings of fruits and vegetables every day? Not many. And it's super expensive. So yeah, so a lot of these other products, they've really just not been able to hit the mark because of the reason why. It's just that simple, right? We are not willing to compromise on the quality of our product as it relates to our customers.
Well, beautifully said, and a balance of scientific and poetic.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, it's something I'm passionate about, and I think when you're passionate about something, it's easy to talk about it. I'm not in the business of convincing people. I just care to share, but I'm not emotionally attached or connected to the outcome. It's for other people to decide. I just knew that people like Linda deserved an alternative. She had no voice and she had no choices. And it just grew from there. And I just realized there was a whole lot of people who were struggling with options. And the ease of it and having something that they could trust. Like, I've met a lot of vegans. I was a yogi for quite a few years. I taught yoga, and I met lots of vegans. And the one thing I will say about the community is they're very focused on all the things that you described, but some of them aren't educated to the importance of balanced nutrition. And so I met a lot of them that just were eating kale every day, and they weren't, you know what I mean? It was more of a diet of avoidance than a diet of health. And so it's really great to see, like, organizations like Planted Expo and what we're doing with EFG and Ethical Food Group and products like mine, where now people can trust that, hey man, I don't have to think about it anymore. I can make this choice as a family. I can make this choice as a consumer. I can trust products like Heal. I can go out and live a healthy, active life, be a person living my virtue and my values as a vegan, and I don't have to worry about being malnourished because I'm avoiding things that have ingredients in it that I don't want to eat. That's the beautiful thing, I think, of what you're describing is that growing movement in the grocery stores where it's spread out now. It's an option. It's kind of getting to be everywhere.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for what you do, why you do it. It's a beautiful product and a beautiful story. And I'm obviously extremely proud, with Ethical Food Group being, in the mix with you guys and supporting you. And can't wait to see it everywhere, or at least if you're, especially online, just more and more people jumping on board, going to drinkheal.ca and checking it out. So thank you, Paul, and really enjoy, being able to have this chat. It's probably, been a conversation a long time coming. So I'm glad we could connect today. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's an honor and a pleasure. And thank you for having me on. I've really appreciated your time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Aisle 42. To learn more about everything Paul and his team are doing, visit drinkheal.ca. That's it for me. I'm Corbin Hebert. We are Ethical Food Group, and I'll see you in the future.